Hello, all. This is Dr. David Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I want to talk about different alternatives that you should be thinking about if you're thinking about doing a PhD. So I don't want you to try out a PhD right away. I want you to do these other alternatives first. So if you don't know me, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out to get through graduate school and then to eventually get a professor job that I wanted to give back as much as I possibly can. So I am doing all of these YouTube videos. I created a sharing economy proofreading platform where you can get feedback on your writing. But then I'm doing these YouTube videos to talk about all this kind of stuff that nobody ever talks about. And I think these are really important things to talk about. So why shouldn't you do a PhD? I think this is a really important topic to think about. So the first one in it, or the first thing that I want you to know is that it does take a significant investment. And I'm talking, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, depending on what you're doing and the sort of path that you're taking. It's unusual to take 3 years. It is pretty unusual in this day and age now to take 4 years. I know a lot of programs will say a 4-year program, but it typically is not. So if you do take a 4-year program and you do get out, it's going to be very, very hard to get an academic job after that. Unless you are an absolute superstar, it's hard no matter what. And you have to be a very, very talented individual. And the reason is you're competing against the global marketplace, right? So, and the global marketplace is becoming, there's a lot more countries that are coming online around the world. So 30 years ago, that wasn't the case, right? There was still just a couple of small countries that were dominating the world empire. But now that there's lots of globalization is happening, it's real, and there's lots of countries that are becoming wealthy, and these countries are actually investing in their higher education, and they are very good at the things that they do, right? And there are a lot of people. I mean, even if you just think of China as a single country, it's 1.2 billion, 1.3, 1.4 billion people, somewhere around there. That's a lot of people that are coming online and that have came online in the last 15 years. And so there's a lot more competition in this area. And there's lots of really smart people around the world. I hate to break it to you, you're not the only smart person around the world. There is tons and tons of you that are doing this. So you have to be very, very passionate to compete in the global marketplace, and you have to want to do this particular thing. So I want you to think of all sorts of different alternatives first before you try to do a PhD. It is a huge investment, and you're not going to recoup the cost of the opportunity cost. So most of you are going to be fairly talented and already have a pretty good undergraduate and maybe a master's degree, that you can actually do very, very well in the marketplace. So to forego that opportunity cost of actually doing well in the marketplace to choose a PhD, you really have to think about it and think that it's the right thing for you and actually have sort of passion for it. I hate that word. It stinks because I think it's really willy-nilly, but I think it actually does communicate the right message that you just have to want to do it and sort of forego everything and know that it's not really financially rational to actually do this career for at least the first 10, 20, even 30 years, depending on which kind of area if you're doing some areas, it might never be financially rational to do it, right? There is a lot of areas that it truly is not, and you'll never recoup the cost of doing it. So I want you to really think about this. There's a lot of people around the world that once they have done their PhD, they have thought about maybe I should have done something else. And I just want you to think about this before you actually do this. And I want you to really, really consider it, because there's lots of sort of motives, the reason why we do these kind of things, but there's lots of other things that you can choose that will get you to the same sort of area that is not going to be as challenging, I guess. I want to point that out, right? So what are these alternatives that you should be thinking about? So the first one is, I want you to, if you're really thinking about this at this moment, I want you to take a holiday. I want you to take a break. I want you to take a vacation, whatever it is. Just take some sort of break, and it doesn't have to be that long. And I want you just to contemplate and think about what you actually want to do with your life. And you want to think about that. Now, if you're currently unhappy with the thing that you're currently doing right now in your workplace, whatever it is, I want you to think about why you're unhappy with it, right? So, is there actual ways that you can choose and change the thing that you're doing right now to make yourself more happier than what you're currently doing? Is there a boss that you don't like? And so you're thinking about going back to school? Well, change jobs, right? Like find a new boss. Is there other people around you that you don't like? Well, find change a job, right? Is there just something with the thing that you're doing that you don't necessarily really like? The task is kind of boring. Well, try to find some more meaningful tasks for you to do. Ask your boss, ask your employee, ask the people around you if there's meaningful work that will get you to the sort of area that you would like to do, and sort of try to increase your happiness that way rather than going back to school and going back to education. I'm not knocking it in any sort of way. Higher education is wonderful in a lot of different ways, and you gain so much from that. And I know that I'm being very self-interested right now because you're all thinking, well, this guy has a PhD, and this guy is, trying to persuade me not to do that because I'm trying to reduce the supply of PhDs. So if you think about the supply and demand of PhDs, you can watch a video that I had from a few months ago that I wrote, or that I talk about that. But if you think about this, I'm trying to get you to restrict the supply of PhDs, and that is going to increase the cost or the wages for me, and it's going to benefit me, right? But that's really not why I'm doing that, because it would take an awful lot of people to watch this video for before that would ever happen, and a lot of people that are really unusual and would listen to me, and it's not going to happen, right? So it's just clearly not going to happen in terms of that particular outcome. So I'm well aware of that, and so that's not my motive. I just want to make sure that you have as much information before you go and do a PhD, and thoughtfully think about it before you actually do it. There's lots of people that would have chosen something else if given the opportunity. So I want you to think about that in the first sort of thing. Take that break, really think about why you're unhappy with what you're in your life, and try to persuade yourself to figure out an alternative way rather than education. It's not the answer for a lot of people. It is for some people, but it's not for everybody. The second thing that I want you to think about and try to do, if you're wanting to go into research, and that's really what the goal is with doing a PhD or any sort of, or doing a doctorate, right? It is to do some sort of research and to pursue either research in industry, which is less common, or research in universities, is to do a PhD, and that's the reason why you're doing that. So if you're wanting to do that, try to find industry jobs that serve that niche or serve that need for you. There is a lot. So in my undergrad, I was able to do research positions all the way through my undergrad in industry jobs that were really interesting and did the exact same thing that I'm doing right now. It didn't change at all. It was still the same sort of work that I was doing, what I'm doing right now. And it's really all about discovery. And there's lots and lots and lots of jobs that are like that all around the world. Even if you're a literature major or whatever it is, humanities, Spanish, whatever, there is a lot of jobs for you that are in research positions that allow you to do those kind of things in industry. So I want you to look for those before you actually do a PhD and see if you can get those first. And that's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to make sure that you're always being employed, and you could do something very similar doing that. You can go into, and it doesn't matter the industry, be creative, right? Oil and gas has stuff. Of course, computers and high tech and all that kind of stuff has that kind of stuff. But you can go into industry associations and talk to industry associations, and any industry that you're thinking of, look at that. So entertainment industry, right? Go find the industry association for the entertainment industry and go start talking to them and figuring out where there's research positions for you. There is, I guarantee it, and you can find those, and that will save you a lot of time and effort and allow you to actually have a really good career as well. doing that. So the third thing, if you're doing this for a PhD for status in any sort of way, see if you can, and a lot of people do it, right? Like I'm being honest with you. That's a real motive to do a PhD or do a doctorate, is to increase your status, socioeconomic status. It's probably one of the biggest benefits of actually doing a PhD is people actually do listen to you once you get one. That's really all. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Um, and people do listen to you, but find other ways before you actually pursue that route to look and build your reputation. So go and volunteer and actually do leadership roles in your religious organization, your church, your synagogue, whatever it is, your mosque. I don't care. Just find those places that you can do leadership roles to get status in your community. You can also go and volunteer in your community. And you know what? If you volunteer and you do something and you push at it and you do the thing that you want to do, and you do that long enough for a few years, you do gain status from it. I guarantee it. You will. It's weird that that does happen, but it does happen, and you will gain status. So look for status in terms of, and status, I'm talking about like people actually deferring to your judgment and asking you for the things that you would like to, or that you would like to say, asking for your opinion, right? That's an important thing, and people get a lot out of that, right? You get a lot of emotion from that. So just think about that going forward, and look for those opportunities in other areas that are just as important rather than in education. And the fourth thing that I think is really important, and a lot of people don't think about this in terms of what they could do with a PhD before they even do it, be an apprentice. Go and actually do some research on your own and spend, 6 months, maybe spend 4 months, 6 months doing that just at night. Kind of brush up, be an armchair scientist in the area that you're thinking of going into. Start reading all of the academic journals in those areas, articles. Find a scientist that's doing that thing. There's this wonderful story, and I think there was a Disney movie made about this, about one of the professors at the Harvard Medical School, and I'm blanking on this, and please put this in the comments if you watch this movie and you've heard about it, where they had a kid that actually had some rare disease, and they just spent all of their waking time investigating this particular person. It was a family that was actually doing it, and spent all their time investigating this particular rare disease, and actually made an impact in that area. And then because of that, they actually did good research and got into doing research in that way. And now they're leading a lab. I think it's either at the Harvard Medical School. I think they might be in Utah right now. I can't remember what it is, the whole story, but I know that they're affiliated with Harvard, and I think they're affiliated with Utah. So you can do that, right? It's not there's armchair scientists around the world doing this kind of stuff. And if you like it, and if you've done it for 6 months, then you can consider doing a PhD and pursuing it, right? You should be doing that anyways, looking for ways that you can apprentice and actually learn how to do this. It's really not that hard. It's just read a lot in a particular area, find those articles that are important, start reading about them, and then just start making notes and writing about it. That's it. Just start making notes on the things you read. That's it. I mean, there's nothing much more than that. If you start doing it, and everybody starts off at the beginning not knowing what the heck they're reading. It's garbage. It's garbly goop. Nobody understands what they're saying or what they're reading. And then you start getting it once you've done it for 6 months, you've done it for a year, 2 years, you start understanding what they're talking about. And you just have to keep doing it and keep reading. That's really what the magic is with a PhD. And if you can do this on your own, if you could do that for 4 months, you could do that for 6 months, and you're doing it at night while you're working, you're likely going to be passionate enough to do a PhD. And so this is what I want you to consider right now. Before you do a PhD, is to consider all these different alternatives. And if you still want to do a PhD and you've still tried a couple of these things, and you really are passionate about it, and you've discovered that you actually like this thing, then by all means, go do a PhD, go get your doctorate, because it is a long journey, and It doesn't make a lot of sense for most people. If you can find a different way to do it, this thing that you want to do it. But if you are that person that actually does do it and it is the right thing for you, it can be really fun. It can be something that you can never think about something else that you want to do. It is really an amazing career when you're doing it and it sort of clicks and it makes sense for you, but not for everybody. It's a rare person that is actually for. So you have to think about that. That's all I'm going to say. I know that this is, yeah, I just know that some of you might not like this video. I just want to make sure that you are doing the right thing for you and it makes sense for you. So I want you to consider everything else first before you actually do this going forward. All right, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, take care. Bye.